My name is Deepika and I'm a product manager with the Azure Migrate team. Over the course of the next 60 minutes, we're going to talk a little bit about the features of Azure Migrate and we'll follow that up with a hands-on exercise for you to try the product yourself. But before we get started, let's spend a few minutes to set up the lab environment we have provisioned for you. You can use this link to access the lab workshop, and here's your lab activation code as well. My team is going to post this in the chat window so you can have it handy. I suggest all of you to go and register right now. It's going to take a few minutes to provision the lab, and we should be all ready to go once we start the workshop. I'll just pause for a minute while you go and register for the lab. While we do that, I want to inform that the lab is going to stay on for 24 hours once you click on register, and the hands-on exercise will take about 60 minutes. And because of this MS Learn virtual workshop, you'll not be able to unmute yourself. So if you have any questions, be it any questions about the product or any questions about any issues you're facing with the lab, feel free to type it in the chat window. We have folks on the line to help you out immediately. Great. I hope everyone was able to look up the link and they're on the way to register themselves. I'll just wait for a few more seconds before we can get started. Great. Let's start today's session. Let's start by talking a little bit about migration and what we as Microsoft have been hearing and seeing from our partners and customers. Customers are migrating to Azure for many reasons. While these reasons can range from infrastructure-driven considerations to application innovation needs, but with the recent change in times, we're seeing a whole lot of other use cases emerge. As customers explore a remote working model, many of them are viewing their data center contract expiry as an opportunity, perhaps an inflection point to start considering cloud migrations. While the pandemic has definitely slowed down a few sectors, a lot of other businesses are seeing growth. Their on-premises systems and solutions are just not able to keep up with the demand. Meeting demand for rapidly scaling infrastructure and application is best met on a platform like Azure. A lot of other businesses we are talking to are facing cash flow challenges. Customers are repeatedly telling us they need to move their IT dollars into other areas that are critical for their businesses. The resource constraint and cost efficiency of operating on premises is just not making sense anymore, and people are realizing that cloud is the place to be. So what's this translating into is migrations are starting to accelerate for a variety of reasons across customers, across industries. When you think about migration to Azure, here are some common projects that we see our customers execute. Of course, customers are migrating the Windows Server and SQL servers to Azure, but we're also seeing customers increasingly migrate the Linux VMs, Linux and other open source databases to Azure. Many customers are running their dev test workloads only on Azure platform. We're also seeing an increase in migrations of web apps, VDIs, or purpose-built migrations such as VMware, Oracle. When you think about migrating to Azure, there are a few ways for you to do it. Even if you think about migrating in the most efficient way possible, there are a few options to consider. Regardless of this option, we thought it would be good to frame this in the context of your typical LOB application. If you think about it, a two-tier application which is running a web and app layer and has some database server sitting in the backend. The server themselves can be running on Windows or Linux. The application itself can be running on VMware, Hyper-V, or it could even be running on VMs on other clouds such as AWS and GCP. What you could do is you could take this application or you could take specific tiers of this application and move it over to Azure IaaS, or what we would like to call a lift, optimize, shift migration to Azure. You could also modernize your .NET applications that are running on premises and move them to a platform as a service offering in Azure, such as the Azure App Service. Or you could just take specific tiers of the application and move them to more modern PaaS platforms. For example, you could just pick up the data layer or your database that's sitting on premise and move it to Azure SQL or SQL managed instances. If you're a VMware customer and you're super comfortable using VMware and you're well versed with it, you could easily migrate to our dedicated Azure VMware solution. This way, you can continue to manage your environment with the VMware tools you know of while you continue to modernize your application with Azure native services. This is a common use case now, especially the work from home realities. Customers are migrating their virtual desktops from on-premises to Windows virtual desktops while they migrate their VDI infrastructure underlying to Azure IaaS. Regardless of the options or the combination of options that are applicable to you, let's talk about the product that makes this all happen, Azure Migrate. Azure Migrate is a central hub of tools for all your data center migration needs. Azure Migrate unlocks multiple scenarios for you. You can migrate your Windows and Linux servers, you can migrate your databases, your data, your web applications, and even virtual desktops. Azure Migrate provides comprehensive discovery, assessment, and migration capabilities that are powered by first-party Azure tools as well as other partner tools. I'd like to inform that Azure Migrate is now integrated with over 10 plus partner tools, including the likes of Turbonomic, Cloudamize, and others. You can also centrally plan and track your migrations across your migration workflow, all the way from discovery, assessment, to migration. Now let's spend a few minutes to look at the tools and capabilities that are part of Azure Migrate. For the purpose of the workshop today, we're going to focus on two major tools that are part of Azure's Migrate portfolio, the Server Assessment Tool and the Server Migration Tool. The Server Assessment Tool allows you to perform an agentless, comprehensive, at-scale discovery of your machines running on any platform. It could be hypervisor platforms such as VMware or Hyper-V. It could be a bare metal server that's running, or it could even be VMs on other clouds such as AWS and GCP. You could also use a CMDB import option to quickly do a bulk import of your servers and perform very quick assessments. The Server Assessment Tool also helps you optimize your Azure cloud costs by performing and analyzing the actual resource requirement in terms of cores, memories, IOPS, and other factors. The tool also provides you with right-size VM recommendations that you can use to optimize your infrastructure and run your workload at the best performance on cloud. You can also use the tool features to help inventory the applications and software components that are installed on your servers. You can use the agentless dependency mapping to visualize the interdependencies across tiers of an application or even across applications. This is a powerful capability that can help you design high confidence migration groups and just mitigate any complexities upfront. Now let's look at another tool that's part of this portfolio, the Server Migration Tool. You can use the Server Migration Tool to migrate your machines running on any platform into Azure. The Server Migration Tool provides you with an agentless migration option for migrating your VMware and Hyper-V VMs. At the same time, you can use our agent-based option to migrate physical servers and VMs running on other clouds. With the agentless migration capability, you can ensure zero data loss during your migrations. The tool also gives you an option to test your migrations and validate your application performance, functionality, and migrate with confidence. Now that you have a good flavor of the tools and capabilities of Azure Migrate, let's shift gears and deep dive in and get our hands dirty with the workshop. But before we do that, I just want to take a few minutes to set context on the workshop and just give you some pointers on what you can expect today. While Azure Migrate can cater to migrations from any platform to Azure, for the purpose of the workshop, we're going to look at how you're going to discover, assess, and migrate Hyper-V VMs that are running on premises to Azure. We're going to use the Azure portal for this exercise today, but you can also use API automation-based options as well. We also have a MS Learning course that you can use and leverage to migrate your VMware VMs to Azure. My team is going to post this link as well in the chat window so you can have it handy. This is an on-demand course, so you can go look at it whenever it's comfortable for you. Let's look at some of the high-level steps that we'll follow for the workshop today before we get started. We already have the prerequisites and the required permissions set up for you to perform today's exercise, so we'll not spend a lot of time on that. We'll start today's workshop by creating an Azure Migrate project. Once we create the project, we'll discover your Hyper-V VMs running on premises by downloading the Azure Migrate appliance. Once we have the servers discovered, we'll perform an assessment to review the server properties and see its readiness for Azure, as well as see how much it's going to cost for us to run on Azure. Once we performed an assessment, we'll begin the replication process to Azure. Once we ensure that the replication is running healthy and is progressing well, we'll start a test migration to ensure everything's well before we do a final cutover. This is how the workshop's going to pan out today, and I'm going to hand over to my colleague Vineet, who's going to work through the workshop.
Hello everyone, I'm Vineet Vikram and I'm Product Manager in Azure Migrate team. Today I shall be working with you to complete the hands-on session on Azure Migrate. Deepika and Anmol shall be supporting me in delivering this session. Both are also Product Managers in Azure Migrate team. Now, as I understand, you shall not be able to unmute yourself during this session, but please feel free to use the chat or Q&A window to let us know if you have any query or need any assistance, and we will be happy to help you. Along with lab exercise, we shall also try to touch on additional topics that are related to the exercise that we are doing. On this note, let's begin our lab session. Let me share my screen so that it becomes easy to follow through. Okay. So I hope everybody is able to see my screen. Now, as Deepika has already talked about, while you guys are registering, as Deepika has already talked about that Azure Migrate provides a central hub for discovery, assessment, and migration of on-premise workloads to Azure. The hub provides first-party tool Azure Migrate, as well as integrated tools from independent software vendors. Azure Migrate can discover, assess, and migrate virtual machines, physical servers, and machines hosted on other cloud service providers. In terms of virtual machine, we support both Hyper-V and VMware. Now, in our lab session today, we shall be migrating VM hosted on Hyper-V machine. In the Learn module that Deepika talked about before handing over to me, that is about how to migrate a VM from a VMware environment. But today in our lab, we are going to work with Hyper-V. And in our session today, we will be covering the topics such as setting up the source environment for migration to Azure, setting up the Azure Migrate assessment, creating and enabling replication, doing a test migration, and reviewing a migrated server. Now, I hope everybody has their lab credentials ready and they are ready to access it. Once again, please use chat window if you need any support. Okay. So this is first name, last name, email, organization, country, and the Ignite activation code. I'm clicking on register, launch lab. Now, as you may see, there are lab instructions given on the right-hand side. If you are comfortable working like this, it's good. Otherwise, you have the option to pop it out in a new window, and it shall pop out. And if you are okay to work on, okay. So on the right-hand side, you will see the VM that we are going to use. This VM is actually a Hyper-V host. And that is what we are going to use in our lab session today. Let's just wait for my VM or Hyper-V host to come through. In the meantime, I'll go to the next. So this is the first step. Okay, let's give it a few minutes. But in the meantime, let's talk about a few other aspects of Azure Migrate. Now in Azure Migrate, you have the option, like Deepika informed, you have the option to migrate servers, you have the option to migrate databases, VDI, your web apps, etc. as well. And we support all major OS, whether it's Windows or Linux, and such information is also available on our documentation website. You may just Google it, or you may just go to docs.microsoft/Azure Migrate, and you should be able to access the documentation in detail. Now, like Deepika mentioned, we have three major categories when it comes to discovering your data center, which is VMware, Hyper-V, and physical servers. In case you're working or you're hosting your current machines in another cloud service provider like AWS, GCP, or any other source for that matter, you may use the steps for physical server migration, and the same will be applicable for migrating your machines from other cloud service providers to Azure. Also, when we talk about the Azure Migrate journey, so as part of step first, we ensure that our appliance is in place. Now, appliance is something that we deploy in the on-prem environment, and with that deployment, depending on whether it's a Hyper-V environment or a VMware environment, we need separate appliances for them as of now. So it means also that there are three options: VMware, Hyper-V, and physical server, and the appliances for each one of them is different. Now, once we set up the appliance runs on-prem. It collects data from your on-prem environment and it feeds into the Azure Migrate portal, where you will be able to see everything that we have discovered in your environment, which means that we are able to discover the not only the VMs and the related IP and information around them. And just a minute. Yeah, information around them. We are also capable of discovering the applications hosted on your VMs, and also to produce the dependency analysis. Now, dependency analysis is very useful for the users because now they have the ability to determine which server is interacting with what all other servers in your data center, which means that.
Hey, Dinesh, sorry to interject. We've provided another link for you to use where we've already pre-provisioned all of the setup, so it's a little quicker for the participants. You can access the link on Teams and get started.
Thanks, Deepika. I was just waiting for this machine to boot up. Deepika, could you please paste this for me again? Okay, got it. Great, thank you. Fine. So as you may see, a VM is provisioned. This VM is actually a Hyper-V machine. It's a Hyper-V host. And as you are able to successfully register, you will be able to see the lab instructions on the right-hand side. As I informed earlier, you may pop it out. And on the left-hand side, this is the VM which we shall be using for our lab environment today. Now, first of all, let's check that everything is in place. So let's first log into Azure portal. So there's an icon for Microsoft Edge browser. Just right-click, say open. Now, you will have your email or username provided in the lab guide on step number 6. You may just copy it from there and directly paste it in the chat, or sorry, in the required place. The password is also provided. You may copy and paste it directly. The password is a little complex, so yeah, we don't expect anybody to kind of type it in. If it asks for save password, just select never. To reduce the number of steps you are asked to sign in, select no. Start tour, maybe later. And if anybody is getting a advisor recommendation, just close that pop-out window or pop-out information tab, and then we are good to go. So in this, with these steps, we are inside the Azure portal now. Now let's review the app or the web app that we are going to migrate or basically use to demonstrate the migration capability. Now there is a company, Contoso IT, and this particular website, which is being represented by this icon, Contoso IT. Again, right-click and open it. This is basically a ticketing application for Contoso IT. The website is contosoit.contoso.com. It should automatically open for you once you click on open. Just waiting for it to load. Generally sharing things work a little slow, so let's give it some time. So with this application, actually what we are trying to show is that this is the on-prem machine with this entire host, and then we have a web app hosted on the same. Now if you scroll a little towards the right, in case you are using the lab instructions and the VM side by side, you might have to scroll a bit, otherwise this should be visible to you. The create new button. So this create new button will actually give you an option to create a new ticket and assign it to a support engineer. So title, etc. I will not spend much time on this one because we will spend more time in terms of doing the migration steps. But this is just to show that there is a web app existing on your local machine. Now let's open the command prompt. Click on the search icon over here, type CMD. It will open a command prompt. Now we are going to ping contosoit.contoso.com. Now this particular step actually shows that this particular IP 10.0.0.100 belongs to this particular host, which means that this is on-prem machine. And this is what exactly is given in the step 6 on the lab guide. Now let's minimize this one. Let's minimize the web app as well. Now let's see what all guest VMs that we have as of today. For this exercise, double click on your Hyper-V manager. Click on jump host. You should be seeing 3 guest VMs over here. Migrate Next, Web App 01, Web MS SQL 01. Now Migrate Next is an appliance that we have pre-installed so as to save time. Web App 01 is basically the guest VM which is hosting the web app that we just accessed, and Web MS SQL 01 is actually the backend database for our Web App 01 of contosoit.contoso.com. So with this step, we have just ensured that we have everything in place. We are able to access our on-prem environment. Now let's go to the exercise to begin. I'm going to give you 1 minute, not 1 minute, but basically a few seconds so as to jump to the exercise. Okay, let's begin now. So as you may see, the first step is all about logging into the environment. Now let's go to the Azure portal again. I'm going to scroll the instructions and execute these steps side by side so that we can relate. Just type migrate or Azure migrate. In the search bar, it will open the Azure migrate view for you. Now as you may see, there are servers, databases, VDI, web apps, data box, etc. that are available. This is all what Deepika has talked about, and I have also touched upon in brief. Now, access and migrate server. This is the option that we are going to click today, because today we are doing this exercise so as to migrate our server. Now it says create new project. Please do not create new project as of now, because we have already created a project for you. You have to click on change. It is towards the upper right corner, right next to a migrate project. Now you will see a subscription ID. Now the subscription ID is already provided to you. And migrate project. Now please select the migrate project that is assigned to you, and it depends on the deployment ID provided. Okay, 22332. Okay, let's click OK. Now this is the window where we are going to add the tool for discovery and assessment. You just have to click here. I'm on step number 8. Now these are different tools that are available so as to perform discovery. Now as you may see, we have Azure Migrate Server Assessment. Let me expand that name column a little bit more. Yeah. So Azure Migrate Server Assessment, Cloudamize, Corentech, etc. Now these all are independent service providers, software vendors, ISVs. Now we are going to work with Azure Migrate Server Assessment. This is the in-house first-party tool developed by Microsoft. Now when you scroll towards the bottom, you will get an option to add tool. So currently deployment is in progress. As soon as the deployment of this particular tool is done, you will start seeing assessment tools card getting added. Now let's click on Discover. This is the first step in our migration journey. As you may see, there are two options given over here: Discover using appliance and import using CSV. So import using CSV helps you to import the data without performing discovery using the appliance. It means that if you have your environment data available in a handy, then you can download the CSV template from here, fill in the template. Most of the columns are optional, so providing very minimal data, you can directly jump to the assessment. But please note that we will not be able to migrate any machine that is kind of assessed using the import option. This is just to quickly provide you the option to assess your data center in terms of readiness. Now coming back to our main category of discover using appliance. Now my environment is virtualized. It's with VMware, it's with Hyper-V, or I have the physical server. So for the purpose of this lab, we are going to select Hyper-V. Now I'm going to give your appliance a name. You can choose any name, there is no restriction to it, but I'm going to choose a name which is kind of related to my deployment ID. Or you may give any custom name, you can give your name, etc., anything. Now I'm going to scroll towards right, click on generate key. Now this is the unique key that will get generated, and this we shall be needing so as to register the appliance to the project. We shall be going to those steps very soon. But yeah, we have just completed step 3 in your lab guide. This may take a few seconds for key to get generated because we are checking the prerequisites and then creating the required Azure resources in the background. Okay, so my project key is available. Now you have two options to download the appliance setup file. One is .vht file, otherwise .zip file. You may work with any of the option as you feel comfortable. There is a PowerShell command that is provided in our documentation as well to work with .zip file. Otherwise, you can download the .vht file. You don't need to download it as of now because we have already provisioned the appliance for you, because downloading it and then setting up may need some more time because it's a little, as you may see, it's a 12 GB of file. So that's the reason we are recommending not to do download and set up the appliance, and that's why we have already set up the appliance for you. Now we'll go to the Hyper-V manager. So let's minimize our browser. This is the Hyper-V manager. Migrate Next is the appliance that we have pre-created for you. If you double click on it, it will open the VM for you. If it's powered off, please click on Start button so as to power it on. The password for logging into the machine is already provided in step number 2. So we shall use this password once our machine, or basically once my machine is up. In case your machine was already up, please feel free to log into the machine and then wait for me to be there with you shortly. Okay, my Windows is getting ready, 100% complete. Great. Now to send the Control Alt Delete command, we will use this icon overhead. It is towards the left-hand side of your VM window, just below the file. So we have sent this command. I'm going to use clipboard to type my password over there. And cool, we are inside our appliance now. Okay. If you're getting this option while your machine was shut down, just write NA, not applicable, or anything that you like, and minimize the command prompt window. Okay. Now, in case the browser window of Azure Migrate Management application is not already open for you by default, just right click on it, select on open. We are currently on step number 3. It will give you that your connection isn't private. Just go to advanced and continue to Win and the appliance name. Okay, it looks like didn't get. Okay, it's waiting for this to load. Agree on terms of usage, click agree. It is doing some prerequisite check, which means it is checking connectivity to Azure for the appliance. It is also checking for time and if the appliance has latest updates installed or not. So as we provide more and more features in the Azure Migrate, we keep on updating the appliance as well. The appliance will automatically download all the latest updates. And because of security reasons, in case your organization does not allow it, then there are ways to disable the automatic update. And you may go to our website documentation so as to read more about how to do it depending on your organization policy. But we highly recommend that you leave this setting on. And now it says register with Azure Migrate. I will actually go back to the generate key. Apologies. Okay, I'm going to copy it from here. Going to come back to my appliance again. Provide Azure Migrate project key. Again, going to use clipboard option. It's right next to media, between media and view. Click on type clipboard. It will automatically copy the entire key for you. I'm going to click on login. For this one, enter code. Just click on next. Okay. So currently I'm on step number 8. I missed this part. In case it is asking you for Windows login, etc., just provide administrator and Let's Migrate 2020 exclamation mark. This is the same password that we use to log into the machine. Now I'm going to paste my user ID. It gives me, click on next. Going to copy my password from step number 9 and clipboard. Going to the sign in. Now if you scroll up, I'm just going to say never for now. This is the appliance configuration manager again. Now it is doing the appliance registration. So once it is able to successfully register, we will receive a success message that the appliance has been successfully registered. So we are waiting for it to successfully register, and that will be the step number 10 for us. Okay, so the appliance has been successfully registered. Now manage credentials and discovery sources. This is where we are going to add our Hyper-V host. So click on add credentials. I'm going to use the same information provided in step number 11. Hyper-V admin. You feel free to use the copy and paste option using the clipboard. Localhost / Contoso admin and password. Let me just give the password, I think. Yeah. Password.1 and double exclamation mark. Just click on save. Great. So it is added over here. Now, add. Okay, sorry. For Hyper-V cluster details, I'm going to go to scroll a little bit up, choose add single item. This is what we have created, friendly name, and the IP address will be 192.168.56.4. Please use the IP address provided in the screenshot in your lab guide if it's different. And click on save. Okay, validation is successful. It means that we are able to log into the on-prem environment using the credentials provided. Now let's click on start discovery. So once the discovery is complete, we will be able to see the information from our on-prem environment into the Azure portal. So I will go to the Azure portal in the meantime. But before I do anything else, let me go back to the assessment card, because that is where our information will show. Click on Azure Migrate. This is where our information will show once the discovery is complete. But while discovery is in progress, let me provide some information about the the prerequisites that we need to work through for any Hyper-V scenario. All these prerequisites could be a little different depending on the environment or depending on the server that you are trying to discover and assess. So for example, if it's a Hyper-V, then Hyper-V host must be running Windows Server 2019, 16, or 2012 R2. Also, please make sure that the WinRM port 5985, which is the HTTP port, is open and it allows the inbound connections. Now for the appliance, our recommendation is that that we should be allocating 32 GB of RAM, 8 virtual CPUs, around 80 GB of disk space. The appliance by default installs Windows Server 2016, and we will also please make sure that there is an external virtual switch and the appliance has the internet connectivity that we checked as prerequisite check when we were configuring the appliance. and your VM could be running any Windows or Linux operating system. Our website or documentation also provide details around the data that is collected during the discovery process. Please feel free to go through it later once we are done with our exercise. Okay, just going to my appliance to check if the discovery is complete. Okay, the discovery is still in progress. Again, in real-time environment, this works much faster since it is a provision and shared environment that we are accessing as of today for this exercise. So this is taking a little longer, but generally, we are able to see results fairly quickly. How much time it will take to scan the entire data center depends on how big your data center is. So generally, between 15 to 20 minutes is, for a large data center, you'll start seeing your the servers that has already been discovered. While the discovery will still be in progress in the background, all you will have to do is to come to your Azure portal, click on refresh button, and as soon as the data is available, it will start populating in the assessment tool card. So just waiting for refresh to get completed. Okay, since our discovery is also complete, while the appliance was still working on something, our discovered servers are appearing over here. Now you click on discovered servers. Oh, my bad. Switch to the exercise 3, create groups. Now before we create group, these are the machines that we are able to see. So web app 01, migrate next, web ms equals 01. Now if you remember from our jump host, these are the 3 machines that are existing on-prem. So yes, our appliance is able to discover all the machines. Now in a project, one common question that we generally get is, what if I have Hyper-V and VMware both in my scenario? Do I have to create 2 projects? No, you need to create 2 appliances, because one appliance will cater to the Hyper-V environment, other appliance will cater to the VMware environment. And then, all those appliance data will come under one project. You just have to search appliances over here in the appliance name so as to see data pertaining to that particular appliance from a VMware environment or from Hyper-V environment, and for that matter from a physical server environment as well. Now I'm going to create group over here. Okay, let me just talk about one thing more, as I touched upon it so application discovery. So currently we have not enabled application discovery for our lab exercise and the dependency agent based or agentless. So in application discovery, we show all the applications that are installed on your VMs. There are one more level of credentials that you have to provide. And then for dependencies, again, there are 2 methods, agent based and agentless. There are different prerequisites for the same. Today we are working with the agentless one. By agent based, it means that you have to install the agent into the respective VMs so as to collect the dependency data. In agentless, the appliance will take care of everything. You don't have to install any agent onto your VMs. Appliance will be the only setup that you will need to do in your on-prem environment. Now when I go to create group, if you see discovery source, it gives me 2 options, imported machine. Had we used the import machine option in our discovery page, that would have appeared over here. I'm not clicking on it as of now because we didn't import. So it will show 0 result, but we have configured an appliance. And yeah, now in case there is an AVS, there's a VMware environment, you have the option to move to AVS instead of Azure IaaS. In that particular case, you will have to select this checkbox. It will pre-filter all the VMs that are from the VMware environment. But in our case, since it's a Hyper-V environment, we are not going to use this option. We are going to select web app 01 and Contoso group. I was looking for this name. Step number 5. I'm giving the group name same as given in the lab guide. LabGuide says also add one machine, so I'm going to add one machine for now. Click on create button. Okay, so group has already been created. Okay. So I'm going to close this. This is step number 8. Now, if you again refresh, please note that this particular page does not get refreshed automatically. Not even, every 2 minutes, 5 minutes, nothing like that one. You have to manually refresh it. So as soon as you refresh and the refresh is done, you will receive the success message. And as you may see, it has created a group, Contoso group. And this is the machine that we added to this particular group. So I'm going to close this one as well. I'm going to discover servers again. Oh, sorry, not discover servers, yeah, to the assessment tool tile. I'm clicking on assess servers. Now assessment type is Azure VM. Discovery source, again, machine discovered using the appliance. Assessment name. Okay. Just giving so we are in, I'm sorry, I'm kind of running a little fast compared to the LabGuide. So currently we're in exercise 4. My bad for not making it clear before. And I'm in task 1, create assessment. Now these are the steps that we have already completed. We are currently on step number 4. I'm giving this name. Now instead of going to next for now, I want to show the assessment, different assessment properties. So you may choose the target location. Where do you want this particular metadata to be hosted, etc. So there are different options given. The storage type, whether you want premium NS disk, you want SSDs, you want HDDs, hard disk drive, the reserved instances, 1 year, 3 years, or you do not want reserved instances at all. Now, what is a reserved instance? What are different parameters? So, there's a small eye icon next to the parameter name. And, this gives you information. And if you want to learn more, you can click here and it will take you to the link that will have more information around all the parameters that we have over here. There is no limitation to creating assessment. It means that for your data center, you can create as many assessments as you like, and you can compare those assessments on how they are, how they're faring compared to each other. For example, how will it be when I select premium managed disk or select standard HDD or standard SSD disk? Or how is it going to be if instead of performance-based, I want my on-prem environment to be copied as is when I'm moving to Azure? And then performance history, I want my performance data to be collected over 1 day, 1 week, 1 month. What kind of VM do I want? Do I want, there are different general purpose VMs, memory optimized, compute optimized. So there are different types of VMs that are available. The comfort factor, now what is the comfort factor is, again, I will encourage you to go and click on this information icon. It's a buffer that you add on top of the utilization data. So for the peak loads, how much comfort factor do you want to be considered? And do you have any offer available with you, or you want to pay as you go, etc.? Do you want to utilize the hybrid benefit, Azure hybrid benefits, etc., or not? All these are kind of different properties that you can play around with, and can create n number of assessments by any permutation and combination of these properties. I'm not changing any property for now, so I'm just going to go with the default option. I'm going to click next. Now, this is basically create new, use existing group. So I'm going to use the existing group. We have already created Contoso group. All the groups that you create will be available over here. And yeah, this is the VM that was already added to the Contoso group. There is no other action required in this. Now you click on next. You do review plus create. Now this is giving you the assessment name, assessment type, and the sizing criteria, target location, all other parameters. Now I click on create assessment. The assessment is currently being computed. Now what we do during assessment creation or assessment computing is basically first we check whether your VM is ready to go to Azure or not. There are certain checks that we perform, conditions that we need to meet before we move to Azure. We want to set you up for success. We don't want to set you up for failure. That's why we always recommend that you perform assessment for any on-prem machine that you are planning to migrate. The assessment, apart from working on the the readiness, it also, as in the backend, using the recommendation logic or the recommendation engine that we have in place. It reads the parameters chosen by you for a particular assessment. It will perform, it will run the recommendation engine or logic, and it will suggest you the, the recommended SKU from our end. That's just a recommendation. It's not that you will have to follow that recommendation. You cannot override it. When you're actually doing the migration, you can override the recommendations with whatever choice you want to make. We will talk about it more once we reach the migration step. And then it also gives you an insight into the cost that we will be incurring when we move to Azure. So I'm going to click on refresh for now and wait for refresh to get completed so that we start seeing the assessments in an assessment tools card. Okay, great. So assessment is available now. As you see, it was 0 earlier, now it is 1. I'm going to click on this one. So all the assessments that you create will appear over here. So you can choose any assessment so as to have more details around it. Just minimizing this so that I can show you screen bigger. So this is the Azure readiness. So we actually just assessed one machine, that's why the count is 1. It is ready to go to Azure. In case it is some conditions, it is ready with some conditions, it will actually tell you, also give you the information on the conditions that you need to meet, or why are we showing that it is ready with conditions. It is not ready, then we will mark it as not ready. This donut will actually turn red. And if there are multiple machines over here, for example 100, then depending on the machines that are ready, that are not ready, that will actually show you as dashboard. This is the monthly cost estimate. Again, please note that this is an estimate. This is not the exact cost, but yeah, we make our best efforts so as to make it as close to the actual cost. And then it is the compute cost, it is the storage cost, and within storage, we selected HDD managed disk. This is 3.01. Now, if you click on the left-hand side, 3, Azure Readiness. So this is again the first donor that we saw. This is the VM that we have assessed. This also gives you the recommended tool, what tool you should be using to migrate this. So our recommendation in this scenario is Azure Migrate Server Migration Tool, which is again a first-party tool. Now, when I click on this VM name over here, it is going to me a detailed view where I can read about different properties or talk about different properties. So core, CPU utilization, memory size, utilization, etc., storage, network adapters. In terms of network adapters, also, this one is the network adapter. This is the disk that we chose, the details on the disk, etc. It will show you all the information around it. Now, coming back to the Contoso assessment again. Now I'm going to the cost details. Again, there is a table which will show you details. So these are again the information, kind of the similar information that we have already seen. Disk information, network adapters, etc. Coming back to the Contoso assessment. Now, if I want to change some parameter, do I always have to create new assessment? Not really. You can go to edit properties from here, edit the properties, whatever you want to have. And I'm not creating a new assessment again in the interest of time. But you can modify any property from here. You can click on save as soon as you modify a property. Let's say action pack. All this will get enabled. I'm clicking on discard for now. Once you save, this will get recalculated, and you will see the new assessment readiness and the associated costs, etc., with the changed properties. Until this point, we were actually we have done the discovery of our on-prem environment. We have assessed the readiness and the associated cost of moving to Azure. Now we'll see the replication, and for doing the replication step, I'm going to hand it over to Deepika again. Thank you very much for being patient with me and following it through. Over to you, Deepika.
Thank you, Vineet. Great. Now that you've performed the discovery and have assessed your VMs, let's look at how you can enable replication for the VMs. In this exercise, you'll configure replication for the VMs and then fail over to Azure using Azure Migrate. Before we go and start the replication process, let's just look at some of the prerequisites that you have to enable to do the replication. At this point, you could just observe what I'm doing. This is not part of your instruction guide. I just wanted to provide this information to you. So you could go and click on Discover. I'm going to click on the scenario that's applicable to us, which is the Hyper-V workflow. So in order to enable replication, you'll have to download and install the replication provider software on your Hyper-V host. You don't have to install any software or agents on the source machines that you're trying to migrate. Rather, you'll have to install it on the Hyper-V host. So we've provided the software installer here that you can download. There's also a registration key file that can help you register the provider to the Azure Migrate project. Once you've finalized the registration, you'll be able to see a note here saying registration finalized. You do not have to perform this step right now. This has already been pre-provisioned for you in the interest of time. So let's go back and see how we can replicate your machines to Azure. To start the replication, I'm going to click on Replicate. I'm going to select the scenario that's applicable to us, which is the Hyper-V migration workflow. I'm going to click on Next. In the Virtual Machines tab, you'll see it's asking for an option to choose the import for me to import the migration assessment settings. Here you have two options to do so. You can either import your migration settings from the assessment that Vineet helped create before, called as the Contoso assessment, or you could specify the migration settings manually as well. For this exercise, let's go ahead and specify the migration settings manually. Once you select on the option, it's going to provide you a list of the servers that were discovered by the provider. And for the exercise today, let's choose the SQL VM. I'm going to click on the Web SQL 01 VM and click Next. The next tab is the target setting tabs. Here you'll have options to choose in order to decide where your VM should reside once it's been migrated. You can choose the subscription that it should be a part of. You can choose the resource group. You can choose the virtual network and even the subnet the VM should be a part of. Let's quickly go and fill those fields. Subscription, you can select from the drop down. Resource group, it's migrate and your deployment ID. I'm going to select the replication storage account. It's a storage account that starts with SA. The virtual network is going to be Contoso Net. And I'm going to select test subnet as a subnet for this exercise. So we've finished until step 12. There are also a couple of other fields that you can choose from. when you enable replication for the first time, you'll be given an option to choose the region as well. The region is where you can migrate your VMs to. So all those folks with data sovereignty considerations, you can choose the region that your VM should be a part of. You can also look at the availability options if you require extra redundancy or high availability of your VMs. I'm just going to keep them as is for now and click on next. In the compute tab, you'll be able to see the VM name, and you'll also be able to see some of the properties related to the VM. If you were doing an import-based assessment, which we've not done for this exercise, we've done the manual one, you'll be able to automatically see the VM size here. But as we're doing the manual one, I'll go quickly select the VM size. Please note that you'll have to select the standard DS2V2 VM size for this exercise. I'm going to quickly select the OS type of this machine, which is Windows. The OS disk information is already pre-populated for me, so I'm good to go there. I'm going to click on next. In this tab, it will display all the disks that are attached to your VM. The OS disk is already here, but if there were any other data disks that were attached to the VM as well, all of them will get populated here. You can review this information. I'm going to click on next. This is the review and start replication tab. You can quickly review all the target settings that we have done. Subscription, resource group, everything looks good. The next step would be to perform a replicate. For this exercise, we'll not click on the replicate button because we've already started a replication process for you. But if you were doing this for your VMs, you would click on replicate to actually start the replication. Okay, because we already have the replication done for you, I'm going to click on cross and go back to the overview page. Great. I'm moving to exercise number 6, and here now we're going to look at the replicating servers and perform a failover to Azure. In the overview page, you can look at the replicating servers line and click on that. Here you can see the list of servers that have been replicating. Here, if you can notice, there's one VM which has already started replicating, and you can notice that the health is good. So the replication has been progressing well. Now we'll just go look at some of the fields that you can play with and some of the edits that you can make before you migrate your VM. To do that, I'm going to click on this VM. This is step number 2 over here. Once you click on the VM, it will open up a couple of options for you, which is the compute, network, and disk properties of the VM. I'm going to make a bunch of changes for the disk and compute properties. I'm going to click on compute and network on the left side pane. Let's click on edit and see what options that we have to play with. If you click on edit, you see that you can edit your compute properties before you actually migrate your VM to Azure. You could change the name of the VM. For all those who have naming standards to adhere to in Azure, you can use this option to change the name of your VM before migration. You can choose the resource group the VM should be a part of. You can choose the size of the VM. Here I'm going to change the size. I'm going to change it to standard DS2V2. Yeah, there we go. We'll also make a couple of other property edits. I'll choose the virtual network the VM should be a part of. You can choose Contoso Net as the virtual group. That's on instruction number 6. I'm going to also choose a primary NIC for the VM to boot with. I'm going to quickly change that to primary. And okay, everything looks good. So let's click on save. Let's go back to the overview tab. Now you've successfully edited the properties for your replicating VMs and you're in good stead to start your test migration to Azure. We'll just wait for this overview blade to load up and we can start the test migration process. Great. My replication health is good and I've performed all the required changes that I wanted to. So I'm going to click on test migration. This is your step number 10. I'm going to choose the virtual network. I'm going to click on test migrate to start the job. The test migration is going to take a few minutes to come through. And while we do that, let's talk through what the test migration actually does. So you can think of the test migrated VM as a sandbox environment for you to go perform any application performance tests or just validate the functionality before you perform a final migration to Azure. If you were doing this exercise, ideally after you perform a test migration, there are a couple of other steps to do. For the purpose of the workshop, we are limiting this to just performing the test migration and ensuring that the VM is running healthy. But if you're doing this for your final migration of your data center VMs, you could also follow this up with a clean test migration process, which will remove all the temporary resources that were created or any test VMs that were created and ensure that you're not charged for it. And after that, you could click on a migrate VM option. Let me just quickly refresh. After that, you could click on a migrate VM option when you're ready to perform your final migration based on your migration window schedules. Once your VM has migrated and you're able to verify that in Azure, you can click on stop replication to stop the process and clean up any artifacts that were created. You could go click on the notification bell here to see the job status of the test migration. Great, looks like it's all done successfully. The VM was started and looks all of it is successful. Now let's go verify the migration. I'm going to go to the Azure homepage. I'm going to click on virtual machines. So once you perform migration, the VM gets created with the -test appended to the VM name. And this is how you can verify that the test VM is created. I'm going to quickly go and check. Yes, the VM has been successfully created, and if you see the status, it says running. So the app was successfully migrated to Azure. Well, that's it. I think that's how simple it is. Great job, guys. I think you've completed the exercise successfully. We were able to discover, assess, and migrate the Hyper-V VMs that were running your Contoso IT ticketing application to Azure. I hope the workshop was useful and it gave you a flavor of the different flavors and capabilities of Azure Migrate. I know some of you are still playing catch up to this. Sorry, we had to set the pace for the workshop so that we could complete it in the stipulated time. But the lab is going to be open for another 23-24 hours. So you could always go back and complete the exercise at your own pace. You could also look at our MS Learn course as well to look at how you can do the same exercise for migrating your VMware VMs. That's all from me on the workshop. Over to Vineet to summarize. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Deepika. Let me just share my screen one more time. Fine. Okay, guys. So, like Deepika mentioned, we were able to discover our on-prem environment in Hyper-V. On Hyper-V host, we were able to perform an assessment on one of the VMs, and then we were able to successfully replicate and test migrate it. Please feel free to read more about it. Also, one of the query that I was kind of reading through, and I guess few of you faced that. So as an answer or common answer to that is, please follow the environment details given in the lab environment tab. There is a possibility that what we are showing on the screen is kind of working, will not work for you because your deployment ID or your environment details could be a little different in terms of IP, etc. So please, look at your lab environment for any technical detail or any, IP, password, login IDs, etc. Okay, coming back to the session again, to summarize what we have talked through. So cloud migration can help you resolve current challenges and prepare you for the future. In the current pandemic, we know that most of our workforce has been it has been made mandatory for them to work from home unless it's really necessary for them to come to office. So using the cloud migration, you can easily still cater to all your business needs without putting any of your, without making any of your employee to come to work or office, etc. Our services are always up and running. Also, our team at Azure, we are always and constantly striving so as to supplement the offerings that we are having. The framework, for example, cloud adoption framework, etc. We are having programs like Fast Track program, Azure Migrate program, AMP, etc. Which we constantly keep on working on and evolving, and we also come up with different tools. Most of these tools from Azure are free. For example, Azure Migrate for your migration journey, it's a free tool. So we constantly strive to work on these tools, frameworks, processes, programs so as to enable your cloud journey and also to make sure that it is as comfortable as possible. Please use Azure Migrate as the central hub to lift, optimize, and shift your workload to Azure. Happy migrating to Azure, and thank you so much once again for joining us for this session. This session is recorded. The session video should be available within 24 to 48 hours. And feel free to look at it. And if you have any query, there are channels to reach out to us. So before we say final goodbye, you can learn more on azure.com/migration. Again, sign up for assistance, azure.com/AMP or azure.com/fasttrack. We will be happy to collaborate with you so as to make your journey as seamless and as easy as possible. If you want to understand more in terms of the migration readiness, etc., you may use this link, aka.ms/smarttool, and assess and move your workloads, aka.ms/Azure Migrate. Thank you once again for joining us. Signing off for this workshop now. Thank you.